Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel Untitled Projects. Thanks for stopping by and seeing what's going on. Today is a long-awaited day because we've got a Spitfire in Microsoft Flight Simulator and it looks awesome. So it's the Spitfire Mk IXc and it comes from FlyingIron Simulations, which is from Australia. Pretty awesome. It retails at about 35 Australian dollars, not about, exactly 35 Australian dollars. That's about $27 US and about £20. So I think that's a pretty good deal, if I'm to be honest, for something that is apparently very, very nice. We're yet to try it out, but we'll see. The Spitfire LF Mark 9 from DCS, a very, very similar, if not exactly the same aircraft, is $49. And I know that that's awesome because I've flown it a lot. So there's going to be some really interesting comparisons between DCS and Microsoft Flight Simulator here. So what do you get for your money? Apparently you get a 3D cockpit model built from Heritage Flight Simulations' incredibly detailed CAD model. Now that's saying something. That is something that is very, very detailed. That model is used for the perfect replica of the Spitfire Mk 9 cockpit. And that's going to be able to model basically the smallest details down to each rivet. So it should be absolutely spot on, but we'll see. Sound design's meant to be really, really good. All these sounds have been professionally recorded from a real Spitfire, like a lot of the other aircraft that you get that are very high level in Microsoft Flight Simulator. This is a must because everybody knows the sound of a Merlin, and it's got to be absolutely spot on from startup, cruise, aerobatics, everything. So I'm looking forward to that sound. Obviously they have to adhere to the Asus flight dynamics and physics that are already in the simulation. Let's see about that, because the Spitfire was famously sensitive and could easily go into flat spin if not treated properly during a pretty tight turn. And if you've played it in DCS or if you've flown one in real life, which I haven't, it's quite a unique plane to fly. So we will see. So what else do you get? You get a few versions of the Mark 9, one with the clip wings and one with the sharper wings, or the normal wings I guess. The clip wings were for better roll rate and slightly increased speed, so that was why that happened. And then you get quite a few liveries, and they are really, really beautiful, so check it. And apart from that, you get a pretty nice manual that's going to help you out with some of the simpler things. It's not amazingly detailed, it's not up to that level. That means you can absolutely understand the entire thing all the way through and through, but it will get you going, so it's a good starting point. So what do we got next? We've got the history part. It all starts in 1931. The British Air Ministry released specification F7/30, calling for a modern fighter capable of flying a speed of 250 miles an hour. Reginald Joseph Mitchell, a designer working for Southampton aviation company Supermarine, designed the Supermarine Type 224 to fill this role. The 224 was a bulky open cockpit monoplane with fixed, spatted undercarriage powered by a 600 horsepower Rolls-Royce Goshawk engine. It made its first flight in February 1934 and was not accepted as an F7/30 worthy aircraft by the Ministry. Instead, out of the 7 designs tendered, the Gloucester Gladiator biplane was accepted for service. For Mitchell and his team, the Type 224 was a huge disappointment, but they knew it had great potential and got to work redesigning it immediately. This led to the Type 300, which again failed to impress the Air Ministry. It needed more refinement. In November 1934, Mitchell, with the backing of Supermarine owner Vickers Armstrong, embarked on another redesign. This time the Type 300 was vastly improved with the incorporation of an enclosed cockpit, oxygen breathing apparatus, smaller and thinner wings, and the newly developed, more powerful Rolls-Royce V12 engine, later named the infamous Merlin. In December of that same year, the Air Ministry provided £10,000 for the construction of the improved Type 300 design, and on January 1935 they formalised a contract. Over a year later, in March 1936, the prototype K5054 took its maiden flight from Eastleigh Aerodrome, later Southampton Airport, and remained airborne for only 8 minutes. Its direct competitor, the more heavily armed Hawker Hurricane, had had its maiden flight just 4 months earlier and showed promise. The race was on. And after several more successful test flights and modifications, the Spitfire was almost ready for production. One last flight by Flight Lieutenant Humphrey Edwards-Jones was completed. A week later, the Air Ministry placed an order for 310 Spitfires. With the rising threat from Germany, full-scale production was planned immediately, but several manufacturing problems prevented the Spitfire from mass production until 1938. After some convincing and promise that production issues would be overcome, the Air Ministry ordered a further 200. And finally, in 1938, the first production Spitfire K9787 rolled off the Woolston-Southampton assembly line, almost 24 months after the initial order. The first operational Spitfire K9789 arrived at RAF Duxford on the 4th of August 1938, just over a year before Britain declared war on Germany. The Spitfire would achieve legendary status throughout the war, and this was solidified during the Battle of Britain. Throughout its short 10-year production run, the Spitfire went through numerous variants, each markedly better than the last. There were 24 marks of the Spitfire and many sub-variants, from the Merlin to the Griffon engines, high-speed photo reconnaissance variants, and ones with different wing configurations. More Mark V Spitfires were built than any other type, with 6,487 in total. As the war progressed, armaments changed too. Early variants were fitted with 8.303 caliber machine guns. Later this changed to 4.303 and two 20mm cannon to match the standard firepower that German fighters used. But which variant was the best? Johnny Johnson, the top-scoring RAF pilot of World War II, thought that the Spitfire Mk IX was by far the best variation. Between 1938 and 1948, it operated in over 35 air forces around the world. In all, 20,351 Spitfires were produced, and after the war ended, the Spitfire continued to serve as a frontline fighter and in secondary roles for several air forces well into the 1950s. The last offensive sorties made by the RAF Spitfires were flown by 60 Squadron in their Mark 18s over Malaya on January 1st, 1951. Right, pretty comprehensive history there. Very, very interesting aircraft indeed. There's a lot more history to that aircraft, but that was a pretty brief version. Hope you enjoyed it. So, we're just flying over the jungle, but I'm going to get this aircraft back on the ground, and we're going to check it out, do what we always do here in Untitled Projects. We are going to look at those graphics, check out the cold and dark, have a look at those dials, see how she performs, see how hard this is to take off, which is pretty hard. Then if we can get it in the air and we don't crash and burn, I'm going to check out some of that manoeuvrability. There are some key aspects to how this plane manoeuvres, so we're going to see if that is the same in Microsoft Flight Simulator as it is in DCS. And then we're going to try a landing. Yeah, let's see how that goes. Right, we're back on the ground. We managed to make it all the way from the jungle, and of course, we're at Duxford. I mean, you can't really go to any other airport. I mean, this is the home of the Spitfire, even though it wasn't produced here. It was produced up in Wollaston, and its first flight was from Southampton. This was where the very first operational Spitfire, which was K9789, arrived at Duxford. So, and that was on the 4th of August 1938, so just before the war. About a year or so before the war. So this is where this came from. So this is where we always go. Pilot's already there, already ready to go, which apparently is me in the seat, I guess. So, I have to say, this plane is amazing. It's just beautiful on so many levels. I mean, it's obviously iconic. I've gone for the most iconic paint job you can go for. This is obviously the invasion stripes for Operation Overlord or D-Day. And it's just an absolutely beautiful plane. So we're going to do a little walk around. We're going to check out some of those graphics. We're going to go into the cockpit, have a look at the dials as we always do, and then we're going to do a cold and dark, which is pretty easy with this aircraft. And then we're going to try and take it off, and then we're going to have a look at it in the air. So let's start with the walk around. So, this guy's going to walk around with us, obviously. Look at it. It's just beautiful. I've got this on Ultra at the moment, so you would expect it to be killing the FPS. It isn't. I think that's a really super positive thing. There are other aircraft in Microsoft Flight Simulator that just absolutely kill your FPS. This really doesn't, so it's just lovely. I mean, it's got your exhaust stains down the side there. You can see pretty much every single rivet. It's not too shiny, not too matte. It's just spot on. It's just got everything you'd ever want from a beautiful looking Spitfire. It's even got some of this paint chipping on the edging of the props there, and it's just, I don't know, this has to be one of my favourite aircraft so far in Microsoft Flight Simulator. We've got a lot more to come. I really like the PA-44, that twin-engine Piper. That's a beautiful plane. That's Coronado. And this is, yeah, it's just great. I'm overcome with joy. Navy versions, complete chromed versions. We've got night versions. So many. And also we have the two variants. We've got the wing elliptical shape like this, and then we've also got the clip wing version, which is better at manoeuvring. So, without further ado, let's check out the cockpit. So, first of all, graphically, it's just so good. It's got just the right amount of distress. Oh, and I closed that. Look at that, lovely. Let's open it again. Get a bit of air. Oh, no, closed. Alrighty. So, all of this detail is so good. I mean, just like I was saying, just about the right amount of metal chipping, perfect colours inside. If you've ever made an Airfix model of this aircraft, which I have done lots of times since I was very young, you know when you're picking these paint jobs, they've got to be right spot on. This green's got to be right. This black, this matte black's got to be right. This off grey's got to be right. So this is really, really good. Like I said, I think it's probably one of the best planes in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'm sure someone will disagree with me, but I love this. It's got everything I need. It's an absolute legend of the skies, and it just looks so beautiful inside. Movement is really great as well. You can see some of that moving there. Very nice. Let's get that control column back. And look at that. Just really good. Obviously independent movement a little bit. Nice sounds. Perfect. I mean, all of these sounds were recorded off a real Spitfire, including the dial sounds. So someone's gone into a lot of work. So let's go through these dials. All pretty simplistic, really pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, pretty easy. So first of all, we got obviously airspeed indicator. That's our primary. That's pretty simple. It needs a little bit of getting used to when you're reading it. Not the same as others, but all good. We've got our artificial horizon. We have our rate of climb here. Still yet to figure out what this is, but this does climb like a beast, as you would suspect. Altitude, heading, and we've got our turn and slip indicator. On this side, we've got our oxygen flow and our oxygen level. Nice clock. We have our nose up, nose down. That's to do with your trim. Your gear light indicator. And your brake pressure, I think this is. Your magnetos on the left here. So magnetos on and off. There should be some landing lights somewhere. Yep, they're over here. So all good. Then we've got our voltmeter. We've got our RPM here. We've got our supercharger here. You want to click that on and off. That's going to be nice. It's going to show you a red light. And that'll show you your boost you're getting there. We have oil pressure and temperature. And I think we've got water temperature here as well. That's it. We've got our fuel load. Down here is your landing gear up and down. Here's your windshield de-ice. That's pretty important, so as soon as you go through the clouds, you're going to need that one. This is to jettison your fuel, so if you get shot up by a Cessna, then you can land without blowing up. And there's your fuel pump on and off. And down here, your pitch adjustment. Throttle, obviously, your mixture, and then your propeller RPM control up there, which is 100% at the moment. There's your carb. And down here, we're closing doors, which are these ones here. That also does that. And I think this is probably externals here. They all open, but they don't do anything. So very, very cool. You should be able to turn this on. Your gun sight, but that's usually down here. Oh no, that's a gun camera, sorry. So I can't actually click anything up here, and maybe this doesn't turn on yet, but will do eventually. But you know what? You're not going to need it, because what are you going to shoot down? Because you've got no bullets. So apart from that, it's just, yeah, right on the money. I love this plane. So good. Anyway, let's do a cold and dark, start her up, and we'll head off for a takeoff. Right, cold and dark time. So I'm going to use the checklist, because that is really, really good. And it's going to tell me exactly and show you exactly where things are. So this is very, very useful. So, parking brake. This is a weird one. This is the parking brake here. So, check it out, press the little I, you can see it. I have to use a key command for this, but let's just make sure that that is on. That's on. That shows parking brake pressure. See, off and on. There we go. The two little pressure arms, so we know that that is set. Let's tick that item. Battery on. So battery is in a really, really weird place. So you're going to press this and it's going to say, oh, it's up here, but that is totally wrong. So I've got to push the throttle forward here. And this is already on. So we are good to go. But I'm going to take the throttle back because if it's on, when you start up, you're going to go nose down into the ground. Prop control forward. So let's have a look at that. Prop control all the way forward. Boom. Take that item. Fuel tanks on. So fuel tanks are here behind the yoke. Not the yoke, the joystick, whatever you want to call it. There we go. That is on. Biddly boo. Mixture. That is idle cutoff. Good. Throttle open 1/2 inch. Probably a little bit too much, but whatever. Wobble or booster pump. So I've now found out what this is this little thing here. So if we have a little closer look, down here, you'll see that this light is on, and this is the fuel pressure warning. And when that red is on, that means you don't have enough pressure in your fuel. So that's what you've got to use this for. And you've got to pump it a load of times. About 10 times, I think. 3, 7, 8, 9, 10. So now that should be off. There we go. So fuel pressure warning is off, which is good. Let's tick that item. Primer as required. So our primer's here. We have to use the scroll button, scroll to unlock it. Come on, scrolly. Locked at the moment. That's not working for some reason. There we go. So unlocked, and we can pull it out. So that's pretty used. Tick. Open starter coil. This is here, I do believe. So let's check that out just in case. Let's start that up. There's our boost coil and there's our starter. Open. Let's check that the mixture is fully rich all the way. Tick. Tick. Magnetos on. Now magnetos are here, you can see. So we're going to do both of those on and on. And here's the starter. So this is why we've got to make sure that the parking brake is on. And this is when you get the beautiful Merlin sound. And that just sounds absolutely fantastic. That's one thing. Well, that's, I mean, they've got everything right, but they've really got that right. That's a beautiful, beautiful Merlin startup. So we'll tick that item. Magnetos are ticked as well. And there we go. Now we are ready to taxi and take off. So let's get to the end of the runway and then we'll see what it's like to take off. Pretty hard. Right, at the end of the runway. So first things you've got to do, close the doors, close that canopy. Love the muffling sound. So a couple of things you've got to know on takeoff is that the Merlin is going to make you go really violently to the left. So you almost have to put full right rudder and a little bit of right aileron to stay straight. And yeah, hope and pray, because this plane's going to want to swing all the way to the left at about 45 degrees. So let's see how it goes. So I'm going to disengage the parking brake and just slowly increase the power, because if you do it too quickly, you're going to bury your nose. Look at that. Listen to that sound. So when the tail lifts, there we go. So there's the full right rudder. And then all the way up, and she should stabilize up to 85 and rotate. Beautiful plane, such a dream. Oh, gear up. Listen to that sound. That is just, oh my goodness. This is now my favorite plane in Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's just beautiful. It's even got that pulsing sound you get from the real engine. So I'm going to climb up to about 8,000 feet, maybe 6,000 feet, and then we're just going to do some flat spin testing and look at some maneuverability. So quick note on trim and on climb rate. climbs pretty well, and she's climbing at a pretty much a maximum rate, probably past her maximum rate at 4,000 feet a minute, which is really, really nice. The other thing is that you want to trim it a little bit before you take off, because as soon as you take off, you're going to be trimmed pretty nose down, and it takes a lot to trim this aircraft to a stable position, so it's very easy to overdo it. Right, we're up at about 9,000 feet now, so first test I'm going to do is a turn step test and see if I can lose enough speed to put it into a flat spin. That's what the Spitfire was relatively famous for, was on a very, very tight turn you'd get a shudder right at the edge of the turn, and if you pushed it too far you'd go nose down and you would end up in a flat spin. So we'll see if that happens now. So I'm just going to pull it as far as I can and throttle it back, nose up a little. And there it is. The stall, or not really a flat spin, but it did stall. Wow, pretty good. Right, so maneuverability wise, it's unbelievably maneuverable. I mean, it's just amazing. You're not overstressing it. Obviously, this is what this aircraft's designed to do. I'm not in dev mode. Right, let's do a low level loop the loop, see what happens. Are we going to hit the ground? No! Wow. Okay, yeah, this is officially my favourite plane. And there it is. I mean, what more can I say about this aircraft? You just have to get it. I love it. It's beautiful, it sounds amazing. It's really, really fast. Let's miss that pylon. And it's a classic. What's not to like? Alright, I'm going to try and go and have a landing. Stall speed is about 65, and we'll just see how that goes. Right, on final for Duxford. So, like I said, our stall speed is about 60. I'm probably coming a little bit too fast at the moment. You'll notice that your flaps are huge. There we go. Oh, off centre line. That sound is just so good. And this is the first landing I've done, so let's see how this goes. This is going to be very, very interesting. If I can get it right down. Look over the nose. It's going to be really hard, actually. I guess you have to look out the window, but you can't do that in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Oh, wow, one bounce. Kind of an okay landing, I think. Oh, don't want to... Oh, let's not tip the wing. Whew. Not bad. Not bad for the first landing. Anyway, next up, we have the Piper Arrow 3. That's going to be the next review. That's good. That's a classic. I love the Piper. I learnt to fly that myself. And... of course, if you like this, little thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs down. It's a democracy. Otherwise, have a great day. Alrighty. Bye.